Hey guys, Ex-Peon here. Today I'm asking an intriguing question. Can d20 roll under checks replace the d6 based checks in old school D&D? Before I answer that question, I should clarify that I'm basing my math off of old school essentials, which I believe is basically identical to basic expert D&D. That is in large part because the website with the rules for the game is super convenient, necroticgnome.com. The other matter I should clarify is why I'm even asking this question. The answer to which is curiosity and convenience. It's an interesting question, and I likewise think my results could make my job as a DM slightly easier. Let's get into it. The first check I'm comparing is the open doors check, which in BX is handled with a d6. Looking at the chart, we see that strength scores from 3 to 8 are identical on this chart and successfully open a door in a 1 and 6. After that, it progresses pretty evenly to a maximum of 5 and 6 for characters with 18 strength. If we compare this chart to a hypothetical d20 roll under strength check and put it on a table, we see that the results are actually quite similar and on average only differ by about 10%. The d20 system has a much more even distribution and doesn't have the same awkward jumps. So is the d20 system better? Well, that's complicated. If you and your players are already quite accustomed to using a d6, then there's little reason to change. Plus, this system on average increases the odds of success by 10%. Maybe you'd prefer for forcing dungeon doors open to be more difficult, or you prefer having more tension in the failures, and maybe making it just a bit easier might take away from that. For me, though, or anyone else who isn't native to old school D&D, it's just a little easier to say, roll under your strength score, than it is to say, roll a d6, what's your strength score? 16? Let's see, that's 4 and 6. Roll a 1 through 4. Now, you could just have them write that value down on their sheet, but I still think it saves a small amount of mental and physical clutter to just use a roll under system. So, I reckon I'll use this alternative in the next game I run, and I'll see how it goes. The next d6 based old school mechanic I examined was the loyalty system. Again, I'm specifically referencing the website for Old School Essentials, so this may not be 100% the same as BX or a different edition of Basic D&D, but I believe it should be at least close enough. So, BX gives retainers a loyalty score based on the PC's charisma, and this is actually a 2d6 system where you have to roll at or under the loyalty score, which ranges from 4 at the lowest to 10 at the highest. I again compared this to a d20 roll under system and made a graph, and we can see that the two options are actually quite similar mathematically, though the d20 check naturally has a smoother distribution. I will note that the 2d6 system is actually 9% more likely to succeed on average, so using the d20 roll under system instead might be something of a trade-off in player efficacy, though I again think it's more convenient for the player and DM. I already have a lot of details to keep track of as a DM, and retainer loyalty based on charisma seems rather low on the list. So it seems like a helpful option for me to just tell a player to roll under their charisma score if they're asking their retainer to do something dangerous or to stick with the party after a lethal encounter. After looking at opening doors and retainer loyalty, I didn't have a clear direction for this project. Old school D&D has many X and 6 checks, but most of them are based on level, class, or race rather than ability scores. Listening at doors, for example, is something most humans succeed at on a 2 and 6 or 33% rate, while thieves and demi-humans succeed on a 3 and 6 or 50% rate. Higher level thieves can get to a rate as high as 83%. So there are some serious complications for translating this mechanic to a d20 roll under system. First, perception is not technically an ability score in BX, though it basically is a score everyone has that is better for demi-humans and thieves. So part of this hypothetical scenario is adding perception as an ability score, which I personally am not opposed to. When we compare a hypothetical d20 roll under your perception score check compared to the default X and 6 checks of BX, we see a serious problem. The most perceptive player character has a starting ability to listen at doors comparable to thieves that are level 11 or higher. So right away, an initial roll in character creation can invalidate over 10 thief levels. That's an issue. Plus, demi-humans effectively have a perception of 7 or 8, when the average perception score would be around 9 through 12 on a 3d6 system. One option could be to just not use demi-humans, which I am also partial to. Another solution could be to give demi-humans and thieves perception minimums, where demi-humans and first-level thieves cannot have perception scores lower than 8, and the perception scores of thieves increase as they level. However, those are some rather major system changes being proposed to fix something that isn't really an issue. So while I'm still interested in the possibility of implementing a perception score into an old school D&D hack and using a roll under system for things like listening at doors, I don't think it's feasible without making much more dramatic changes to the game. There are other D6 checks in old school D&D, such as searching for secret doors, or searching for traps, but none of them are easily portable to the d20 roll under system, nor do they really have a reason for that to happen. I do think it's a convenient alternative for opening doors checks and retainer loyalty checks, and it perhaps could be a good option for things like listening at doors in a more heavily hacked system. I hope you found this analysis interesting. I was quite surprised at how similar the math is for some of these D6 based systems compared to a D20 system. I'm definitely going to implement this to some extent, if only to take a small mental load off myself and make gameplay just a tiny bit faster. I definitely wouldn't say you're missing out or making a mistake if you don't do the same, but perhaps you might find it convenient. And if not, then at least I got your neurons firing. Well, that's all for today. Thank you for watching my videos, and have a good one. Goodbye.